Here's some things that my soon-to-be ex-husband used to do that I didn't realize wasn't normal until after I left. When the Wi-Fi guy came to install our internet, he made me FaceTime him the entire time because he said that I might try and sleep with him, and then he still accused me of sleeping with him, saying that I could have slept with him before I called him or after I hung up the phone. Didn't tell me happy birthday until right before I fell asleep on my birthday, 2 months after we got married. Gaslit and manipulated me into not having a job and said, I just want you to be a stay-at-home wife. And then when like money problems would come up or any kind of issue with me would come up, he would complain about how I didn't have a job and how I'm just mooching off of him. Only came home and ate dinner with me maybe twice a week because he was at his parents' or his brother's house. He did not get me a Christmas present, but instead he gave me his debit card and said, don't know what you want, you got $50, go get yourself something nice. Complained and told me that I was folding his clothes wrong when he never ever did laundry, wash clothes, nothing. He told me over a year after we'd been married and I was pregnant that he wanted multiple wives, and then he was upset that I was upset about it. Got pissed when my parents bought us groceries one time. Told me that he didn't believe that our son was his son, and when I said get a paternity test, he said, I don't even want to because it could be so close to my brother's DNA that you probably slept with that it would just say that it was mine and I would still never know. When the electricity went out on 2 of our rooms, including a bathroom, and our washing machine was broken, and I tried to get him to fix it for about 9 months, he told me that I should have been more grateful and that it was a test to me because people back in the olden days didn't have that kind of stuff, so I should have just been grateful that I had it in the first place, even if it was. This is part 2 of things that my husband did, except this time it's after I left him and I knew that this wasn't normal. And let me also say, when I first left, the reason that like we had communication and all of these stories of whatever, of like why were you even like entertaining him, we didn't think that we were going to get divorced. We were trying to work it out, and so all of these things helped me realize, yes, I do need to get divorced. I went and I got my hair dyed, and then he asked me to send him a picture, so I did. And then later on I took a nap, and then he freaked out because he didn't hear from me for like an hour while I slept, and so he made me send him another picture to make sure I wasn't in bed with another man. And then he analyzed the picture and he said, your hair doesn't look the same as it did after you got it dyed. Like, when is this picture from? Even though it was just in a darker setting. He got mad at me for going to a wedding that he wasn't invited to and I was working at, because he said that it would have been weird for me to go to a wedding without him. And at that same wedding, while I was at the hotel, he kept me on the phone for hours and hours, and I was with my family, so I had to stand in the hallway, and some guy passed, asked me for directions. I told him I wasn't sure. That's all. He was on the phone the whole time, and he told me that I was probably sleeping with him. On Instagram, he would track the number of people that was following me and that I was following, and if the number went up at all, he would call me, go through each individual person, ask me who they are, ask me to block people left, right, unfollow them, block them, whatever, and then would just go into this whole spiel about like, why would you even follow them in the first place, da 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 da, while he was simultaneously following and messaging women on Instagram. And when I would ask him about it, he would tell me it's none of my business and to get over it. I'm a photographer, so anytime that I would go out for a photo shoot, he would tell me to either FaceTime him or send him pictures to make sure that I wasn't lying about where I was in case I was at a man's house. Would get mad at me for going out with my friends. That's it. He would want to call me to try and work things out, and I would be like, okay, but he wouldn't call me until about 9:30, and I had our newborn baby with me, so I was dead tired, wanted to go to sleep. I would talk to him for about an hour, tell him that I wanted to get off the phone, being like, listen, we can pick this up tomorrow, and he'd be like, oh, so you just don't care about our relationship? Like, you care about sleeping more than our relationship. One of the nights that he called me to talk about everything, I was like, you know what? No, tonight I am tired. I'm going to bed. I've been taking care of our baby all day, and he decided to call me 40 times in a row. And then when I didn't answer and I said, please just let me go to sleep, he sent me this long text message prayer thing about, God, please just separate me and Riley right now, and like, we are going to be divorced, da, 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 and then said, look, we are divorced now. Yet he refuses to sign actual divorce papers. That's all for now. Please let me know if you want more. And yes, I know my self-worth now. I know what real love is, and I will never again be treated like this.
Okay, so I was in a toxic relationship and I knew it was toxic, but I didn't know it would turn like scary until this one night. Story time. So my boyfriend lived in the middle of nowhere, Canada, in a cabin in like the woods, which should have been my first red flag, but it wasn't. So I was staying with him in May, and one night he wanted to go to bed and I wanted to stay on the couch and watch TV. So he goes to his room, and then like 20 minutes later, I hear him yelling and throwing things around in his room. And I was like, oh my God, what's wrong? When I saw him, it was the weirdest look in his eyes. It was like my boyfriend was gone and he was possessed by this angry monster guy. He was like, why don't you want to come to bed with me? Why don't you care about me? You're so cold all the time. You don't even love me. And I was like, what? Like, I really had no idea what I had done that triggered this, because he did have anger issues and he would get mad at me a lot, but usually I could like figure out why he was mad. And this time I was shocked. So I was like, I don't know, what's wrong though? And he picks up my suitcase and he throws it across the room and he's like, it's just you, you're so cold, you're gonna move to LA and never talk to me again. So it was around 1 a.m. at this point, and he was picking up my suitcase and pushing it around the room and saying that he wanted to take me to the airport and drop me off there because I was gonna leave him anyway. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's totally fine. Please take me to the airport. And at that point, I knew being in like a public place was safer than being alone in this cabin with him. So I picked up whatever I saw like that I could find of my clothes that he had thrown, put them in my suitcase, and then I let him put me in his car. And then he starts, oh my God, it was the middle of the night and he couldn't see anything on the road, and he was speeding and swerving around in the lanes and playing like the weirdest sad music and crying and yelling while he was driving. So at this point, I didn't know if I was gonna make it. Like, I didn't know what he wanted to do in the car, like, because he was acting so irrational. So I decided to text my roommate, and I told her his car info and like the license plate and where I was. And I grabbed the handle and I was like, I guess I looked too scared, and he saw me texting my roommate and he was like, oh my God, you're telling your friends that I'm abusive, aren't you? Like, you're gonna tell them I'm abusive. And I was like, no, I'm not. I promise, I won't tell anyone. I won't tell my family, I won't tell anyone. And then he does a huge U-turn. So he does a U-turn in the middle of the road, and he takes me back to his house and he told me to get in his room and like stay in his bed. That way I couldn't tell my family that he left me at the airport or something. And that was the most terrifying night of my entire, I literally stared at the ceiling the entire time because I heard him pacing outside of his door. And I locked it, but I didn't know if he was gonna come in at any moment and what he was gonna do to me. This might be TMI, but I had to pee really bad and I couldn't use the bathroom though because he was outside of his door and I was scared of him. So I held it all night long and I didn't sleep. And then in the morning I had a UTI and he had to take me to the doctor, and he said he loved me enough to make sure that my health was okay, even though I was so cold to him. So yeah.
So my ex-husband tried to name our baby when I was pregnant, the same name that he picked out with his ex-girlfriend. I'm sorry for the filter. I look a hot mess today. It's raining. My hair is a mess. And if you know anything about me, I am divorced from a very toxic, abusive narcissist who controlled every area of my life, basically, for years. And this isn't necessarily a narcissistic story time. This is just another story time of how my ex-husband was just terrible and delusional and just all of it. So when I was pregnant, he told me we are not going to find out the gender. I didn't have a say in it because he was like, you know what, this has always been a dream of mine and we're not finding out. And I highly doubt that it was actually a dream of his. It was more of, I really wanted to know and I would love to have like a gender reveal party, even if it was just something small. And he was like, nope, that's stupid. We're just not going to find out the gender. So that was just, number one. So when we were picking out names, we just had to have one for like a boy and a girl whenever we had our baby. It was like, we already have the name, here we go. So when we were picking them out, we were going through a bunch of names and I said, a name that I always love for a girl is Charlie. And he was like, that is crazy because I have always wanted to name my daughter Charlie. And I was like, that's crazy. So after we were like, okay, yeah, that's the name for the girl. Like we were set. I was so excited. I was like, I love this name. He loves this name. Like that was so fast, whatever. And we like sat on it for a little bit. And I come back to him and I'm like, okay, well, if we do have a girl, like we need like a middle name. And he said, oh, well, me and his girlfriend, let's call her Sally, his ex-girlfriend. Me and Sally loved the name Charlie Rose. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I said, so you and your ex-girlfriend of like 7 years had this name picked out that you were going to use. And now we are going to use it. And he was like, yeah, I just love that name. So I was like, you know what? Let's take a step back. I know it might seem dumb, but this is like some weird connection that you had with your girlfriend of a very long time. I would be okay with changing the name because it's just a name. I understand. Like on one hand, it's just a name, whatever. But on mine but this was like a thing that you had with your ex-girlfriend. I don't want that name connected to my child. Just a thing, Call me jealous, call me whatever. I don't care. So basically I told him, hey, I'm not okay with that. Let's pick something else. You know, maybe we can circle back to it, but our first kid is not going to be connected with you and your ex-girlfriend. Which, let me say a side note. Him and this ex-girlfriend and him and his family have had this weird like obsession with his ex-girlfriend where they still love her. They invited her a bunch of stuff. Go watch my baby shower story time where they saved her a seat and not me. And I don't know, it was just a whole thing. So I didn't, like, I'm trying to get away from her kind of thing. It wasn't like this is the only thing that ever popped up. No, I'm trying to get away from the ex-girlfriend. Please, let's just have something that's just us. That's gonna be a no from him. No, he's set on it, and he told me that if we have a girl, he will put it on the birth certificate, and this is gonna be it. Thankfully, we ended up having a boy and didn't have to do that, but
Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking. Kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel. So in today's video, guys, we'll be talking about women in toxic relationships sharing their experiences. Okay, so this is a sensitive subject, but I believe it's necessary to shed light on it because so many women are silently suffering. If you've been through this or you're currently in a toxic marriage, know that you're not alone. Let's create a space where women can share their stories, learn from each other, and most important, heal. So grab a cup of tea and let's have the honest conversation about challenges and reality of toxic marriage. Now let's start by talking about what a toxic marriage looks like. Toxic marriages are more than just occasional arguments. It's about patterns of control, manipulation, emotional abuse, or even physical abuse. These are relationships where one partner constantly diminishes the other, creating a cycle of negativity, resentment, and emotional turmoil. Women in toxic marriages often feel trapped and the longer it goes on, it's harder it can be no break free. I recently came across some heartbreaking stories shared by brave women who have gone through this. One woman said that her marriage started off beautifully, like a fairy tale, but over time, her husband became more controlling, isolating her from friends and family. It started with little things like controlling who she could see and where she could go. Eventually, he monitored her phone and would explode in range of she didn't respond immediately. She talked about how the emotional abuse slowly chipped away at her confidence and her sense of self-worth. Another woman shared how toxic marriage was filled with gaslighting. Every time she brought up her consent, her husband would twist the situation, making her feel like she was the problem. She started to question her own reality. Am I being too sensitive? Maybe it's my fault. And that's the thing about toxic marriages. They often leave you doubting yourself. It's devastating what these experiences do to women mental health. Constant emotional abuse can lead to anxiety, depression, and even physical health issues. One woman shared how she could sleep at night, constantly walking on eggshell, afraid of her husband's reactions. These stories are far too common, and the impact it has on mental and emotional well-being is profound. Okay, so um here is the thing. Toxic marriage thrive in silence. Many women feel embarrassed to admit that their marriages is not perfect or they are struggling. So that society often pressures women to maintain the image of a happy marriage, which makes it even harder to open up. But breaking the silence is the first step forward healing. Talk about your experience, whether it's with a friend, therapist, or even a support group, can be increasingly freeing. For those of you who are in the situation, I want to encourage you to seek support. There is no shame in admitting that things are not working. One woman shared how he founding a therapist helped her regain her sense of self. Therapy can give you the tools to navigate your emotions, rebuild your self esteem, and make informed decisions about your future. Whether that means working on the relationship or making the difficult choice to leave, it's important to know you don't have to do it alone. Also, if you feel unsafe, if there's any form of physical or emotional abuse, please don't wait. Reach out to local domestic abuse online or trust loved one. Your safety should always come first. To those who have found the strength to leave a toxic marriage, I just want to say you're incredible. One woman shared how leaving her toxic marriage was the hardest thing she ever did. She was afraid of judgment, of being alone, of not knowing what the future held. But now she's thriving. She found her peace, her strength, and most important, her sense of self regain. Reclaiming your power after leaving a toxic relationship is a journey, but it's worth it talking. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be loved, not controlled, manipulated, or abused. So, whether you're still in a toxic marriage or you found the strength to leave, remember your voice matters. Your story matters. Sharing these stories is so important because it helps others realize they're not alone. It shines a light on the hidden struggles so many women face and gives hope to those who feel trapped. Let's continue to have these tough conversations and start one another. If you have your own story to share, feel free to leave in the comment section, okay? So if you're more comfortable, send me a private message. You never know who your story might help. Yeah, so you just have to, because a lot of women like go through a lot. So I came across one woman. Okay, so she just got married recently, like 1 year ago. So when they got married, they lived really happy, like a normal couple. So things started like piling. Um, the issue came when this woman wanted to start working. Okay, so she had to tell the husband that I want to start working. Then the husband was like, "No, you don't have to start working." And one thing I want to tell you about this man is that this is a man who works and doesn't give the wife anything. He just want to be a traditional wife at home, sit at home. When she don't have to go see her friends. She doesn't have to go see her sisters or family members. Like this man is just like that. Even if you go to town, she's going to shopping. When he says, "I'm home," you should be home. So she saw all these things going on, and the um most difficult part was she was this man used to abuse her emotionally, physically, mentally, everything. So the man used to beat her and tell her that she's nothing, she can go nowhere, and these things. So one day she made a decision and tell herself, I deserve better. I need to walk out from here because one time I can find myself dead. So she had to walk away from that place with nothing. She had to start all over again with no saving. She had to walk with nothing. So there's just beauty of making a proper decision yourself. If you see things are not working, it's okay to leave. It's okay to walk out because your mental health comes first and your sanity. Okay, you can't just live in an unhappy marriage and you're just there seated. No, look at the future. Okay, look at your future. Sometimes being alone is more nice than living with a person who's going to manipulate, control, and even abuse you at the end of the day. Yeah, so living is the most beautiful thing. I know it can be hard at first, but you can do it. Okay, you can do it. It's just one step at a time. Once you live, then you see how peace you find. And doesn't mean when you leave, you're not going to find a proper match for yourself. Definitely, you're going to find a proper match, and you just have to take your time. Make sure you heal. If you want to seek a therapy, go to a therapist, talk to friends, and make sure when you're going to the next relationship, you're ready. And always check your mistake. Like, what did you do wrong in the other relationship for it not to work? Okay. Yeah, so that's the way it is. So a lot of people they are being abused, but they don't know how to come out from it. Like you don't know because you're a traditional wife and you don't have money. Mostly it's financial. Like when you think about financial, and sometimes people don't leave because of their kids. We've heard so many stories where mothers come out and say, "What if I leave and my kids, because I want my kids to live in the same roof, like the parents should be on the same roof," because you know how kids get affected when you separate. They really get separated. So like a lot of mothers, they don't want that to happen in their households. Yeah, so but anyway, it is what it is. If you're not happy, you're not happy. Yeah, so a lot of people now are doing co-parenting. So you can just do co-parenting with your partner. You just agree how you're going to do it and how best you're going to help each other. Mm, yeah. So you can also co-parent, though co-parenting is not easy as we think, but you just have to agree on certain things. Maybe you say this week the kids will be with you next week, or maybe the kids will be going to the father's place during the weekends after school, or maybe it, I don't know. Yeah, whatsoever. So don't be scared. Anything is possible, and sometimes it's you just have to thank God because you can't just be abused like that. You feel like you're not you don't have value. Someone who just lowers your self-esteem, you don't entertain such things. So always be positive and always tell yourself that you deserve better, and always be positive in this life. For you to attract good things, you have to be positive every time and tell yourself that you're beautiful, you're going to attract good things, you're going to have all the things that you dream of. And make sure you work hard. If you don't have a job, start looking for a job, because you need to work for you to live good, okay? You have to work, you have to have your own money, and make sure you're doing that. Yeah. So yeah, having financial stability is really important, because even if you come at the end of the day and say, okay, we are going to divorce, you're not going to have stress, because you know you're going to start your own house without being asking for financial help from anyone. Okay. Yeah, so that's a video for today, guys. I really appreciate you here. Thank you so much for clicking. Kindly subscribe.